and/or temporary restraining order of petitioner Senator Antonio Sonny F. Trillanes IV is denied. 241494, Senator Antonio Sonny F. Trillanes IV versus Honorable Salvador C. Medialdea in his capacity as Executive Secretary, Honorable Delphine N. Lorenzana in his capacity as Secretary of National Defense, Honorable Eduardo M. Año in his capacity as Secretary of Interior and Local Government, Honorable Minardo I. Guevara in his capacity as Secretary of Justice, General Carlito G. Galvez Jr. in his capacity as Chief of Staff, Armed Forces of the Philippines, Police Director General Oscar D. Albayalde in his capacity as Chief of the Philippine National Police, and all persons acting for and in their behalf and/or under their direction, the court resolved to deny petitioner Senator Trillanes' prayer for the issuance of a writ of preliminary injunction and/or temporary restraining order on the grounds as follows. Preliminarily, the issues of whether or not Senator Trillanes filed an application for amnesty and whether or not he admitted his guilt for the crimes subject thereof appear to be factual in nature. Only a trial court, and in certain cases, the Court of Appeals, are trier of facts. Hence, it is appropriate that the Makati RTCs should be given leeway in exercising their concurrent jurisdiction to hear and resolve the pleadings, motions filed by the parties as regards the legality of Proclamation Number 572, Series of 2018. Second, the court takes judicial notice of the categorical pronouncement of President Rodrigo Duterte that Senator Trillanes will not be apprehended, detained, or taken into custody unless a warrant of arrest has been issued by the trial court. And thus, there is no extreme and urgent necessity for the court to issue an injunctive relief, considering that the respondents have acknowledged Senator Trillanes' right to due process. In fact, the DOJ has caused the filing of pertinent motions before the Makati Regional Trial Courts, and the AFP has assured that court-martial proceedings shall be held in abeyance pending resolution of the amnesty withdrawal. Wherefore, the prayer for the issuance of a writ of preliminary injunction and/or temporary restraining order of petitioner Senator Antonio Sonny F. Trillanes IV is denied. Respondents are directed to file comment thereon within 10 calendar days from notice. Justices Carpio, Yonen, Tiham, and Hesmundo are on leave. Okay. Thank you. Yes, Anjo?
Was there a voting on?
Well, there is.
Was the voting on?
It wasn't, I wasn't given information on the numbers as to the voting, but clearly at least a majority was for the denial of the motion for TRO and writ of preliminary injunction.
Yung mga absent po na justices, were they able to leave their votes?
I don't think so. Okay, if there are no more questions, we will be distributing the media briefers to you. Okay, thank you for your time.
Hello. The spokesman. public the decision of the Supreme Court on the motion of Senator Antonio Trillanes regarding the proclamation of President Rodrigo Duterte. It's a denial of the motion of the TRO and writ of preliminary injunction. Again, it's a denial of motion for TRO and writ of preliminary injunction. Respondents, according to the spokesperson, the respondent is required to comment within 10 days from receipt of the notice. The Supreme Court has denied the petition of Senator Antonio Trillanes for a temporary restraining order. Let's speak to his lawyer, Attorney Ray Robles. Attorney, good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon, Ms. Pinky, and good afternoon to your viewers and listeners.
Just a reaction, sir, on the decision of the Supreme Court.
Well, to be candid, Pinky, we were hoping for the issuance of a TRO or a writ of preliminary injunction, but we note the action of the Supreme Court, and we are in fact gratified that the Supreme Court has taken note of the verbal assurances of the President that the Senator will not be arrested, as well as the announcement of the AFP that he will not be arrested. The problem we have, Ms. Pinky, is this. There are public announcements by the President and by the AFP that he will not be arrested, and yet the supposed arresting teams are still at the Senate. So now, since the Supreme Court have expressly noted all those commitments, if Senator Trillanes is arrested by this arresting team, then they will be, in effect, defying the Supreme Court. Because that is one of the bases why the TRO or injunction prayer was not issued. Because there is supposedly a commitment already by the President and by the AFP that he will not be arrested.
This is the part, I guess, Attorney, wherein the spokesperson was saying that the court is taking judicial notice. I didn't get this in full. Please correct me, sir, if I'm wrong, but it's taken judicial notice of the pronouncement of the President that the Senator will not be arrested or taken into custody without any warrant. That's what you're referring to.
Yes. Our problem with that, Ms. Pinky, is that while there is a public pronouncement by the President and by the AFP, their arresting teams are still standing by the Senate. And there is, in fact, an announcement by the CIDG that they will still maintain their personnel here until there is a final resolution of the case. Now, with this official action of the Supreme Court, taking note of those two facts, if anybody will arrest Senator Trillanes, in fact, they will now be defying the Supreme Court, which has already taken note of this.
Which is
so
my...
we are still happy with this resolution. It should be noted that the petition of Senator Trillanes has been entertained. That is why all of the respondents are being required to comment on the main petition. It's just the preliminary remedies which were not granted in view of the fact that they appeared to be moot and academic because of the commitment of the President and of the AFP.
I guess my question, Attorney, is how binding would this judicial notice of pronouncement being used by the Supreme Court in its decision that the Senator will not be arrested or taken into custody without a warrant? Because again, as we're talking about it, sir, this is what they put, this is part of their decision. I guess my question is, how binding is this? Or maybe how solid is this?
We had a problem before because while there are public announcements to that effect, they are still maintaining the arresting teams at the Senate. Now, if they now arrest Senator Trillanes, despite of the in effect judicial notice of the Supreme Court of their public proclamation, then they would be in effect defying the Supreme Court, which has taken notice of this fact.
And what is the consequence of that?
Well, we can go to the Supreme Court
again
to ask for a status quo ante order, and we can go to the Supreme Court to call the attention of the court, in effect, they will be disrespecting the Supreme Court. In the vernacular, parang binastos nila yung Supreme Court kung gagawin nila yon.
Parang binaliwala yung sinabi ng Korte Suprema, sir.
Opo, because that was the reason the Supreme Court did not issue anymore a TRO or writ of injunction, because of the public commitment of the President and the AFP, no less. They will not arrest him without warrant. If they still proceed to arrest him without warrant, then it's like, defying the Supreme Court in the sense that the Supreme Court relied upon their assurances and they broke those assurances.
But why a judicial notice of the pronouncement? Isn't it, how do I say it? Isn't it a bit too on the gray area, possibly not very clear, sir, in terms of, what I'm trying to say is the Supreme Court could have had a categorical statement to the effect that the senator cannot be arrested. But in fact, what they said was taking judicial notice of the pronouncement. It's almost like saying, considering that the president and the AFP said this, so and so. When in fact, they could have said that the senator cannot be arrested and that would be illegal.
Well, it's within you see, the thing is this, every word that comes from the president's mouth is part of public policy. And therefore, the courts could take judicial notice of those public proclamations. So I think it's within the prerogative of the Supreme Court to do that. And now they chose to believe the president, whether or not he will stand up to his word or prove them wrong by acting otherwise, by contravening himself. That we have yet to see. And that will show us what kind of president and what kind of AFP we have.
So
because here we have the Supreme Court saying that we take note of your commitment not to arrest him without warrant. If you do that, then in effect, you are casting aside and you are defying the Supreme Court.
Okay, so what's next for Senator Trillanes? If you're saying that right now, or the arresting team has been there and is still there, does the senator, after this decision by the Supreme Court, is he going to leave the premises of the Senate, attorney?
Well, as I said, we're gratified by the definitive findings of the Supreme Court that there is this public commitment by the President and by the AFP not to arrest him without warrant. The next move for us is to file the appropriate pleadings with the RTC of Makati, branch 158, 150 and 148.
150 and 148.
Yeah. To file the appropriate pleading to oppose the application for warrants of arrest. And this time, we can already bring up the factual issues because the Supreme Court has declared that this has to be ruled upon by the RTC.
Yes.
We are gratified also by the fact that the Supreme Court has chose to entertain the petition by requiring the respondents to reply.
Within 10 days. Within 10 days upon receipt.
Yes. Normally, after they shall have replied, then either the case, the court will require us to file a rejoinder, or the parties will be required to file memorandum, or they will act on the case in a manner which they feel appropriate.
Attorney, in layman's terms, niremand po ng court, ng Supreme Court ang kaso to the RTC? Is that
Hindi po. Ang issue ng kung totoo o hindi na hindi nag-apply si Senator Trillanes, yun ho kasi kailangan ng ebidensya. Ang Supreme Court legal issue lang ang dinidinig. So, hayaan nila yung RTC Makati
to determine,
na desisyonan yung kung totoo nag-apply o hindi.
Okay.
Pero yung petition, in-entertain po rin nila kasi pinasasagot po yung mga respondents. Yung issue ng whether or not constitutional yung proclamation, dinidinig po ng Supreme Court, kaya sila pinapasagot.
So,
Kasi
the issue
po yun.
The issue of the proclamation being constitutional, sir, is still going to be decided on by the Supreme Court. Is that correct, sir?
Yes.
Okay.
Apparently, the Supreme Court has required the respondents to comment. That means that they have not dismissed that. As of this time, that is still live.
Oh, parang they're still taking cognizance of that
Opo, parang
issue.
siniwalay nila yung factual issue.
Okay.
Yung factual issue po, they're allowing the RTC to rule upon that. No?
Opo.
On the issue of constitutionality and legality of the proclamation, which is properly addressed to the Supreme Court, they can rule on that because
Okay.
that is a purely legal issue and it does not require determination of facts. No? Does the President have the authority to withdraw a amnesty duly granted
By the
without
previous-
the concurrence of the Senate and House and without the approval of the judge who approved the amnesty?
Attorney, is Senator Sonny Trillanes still going to stay in the Senate until you've again filed the appropriate pleadings before the two branches in the RTC?
I think we'll have to meet regarding that and decide accordingly after we shall have reviewed everything.
Pag-usapan niyo muna, sir.
Opo.
Okay.
Kasi ang totoo niyan is we are gratified that the Supreme Court has taken note of the assurances and in effect the Supreme Court is relying on those assurances. If this the respondents or the people under them would defy
Okay.
this, then in fact they're defying the Supreme Court.
Okay, now, Attorney, we'd like to thank you. You might want to stay on the line. I will be speaking to Chief Presidential Legal Counsel Sal Panelo and ask him about the arresting officers still at the Senate premises. Thank you, Attorney, Chief Presidential Legal Counsel Sal Panelo. Sir, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Sir, ang tanong ho kasi ng camp ni Senator Sonny Trillanes, bakit naroon pa raw yung mga arresting officers in the Senate, sir?
Hindi ko alam po nandun pa. Baka naman kung merong mga pulis doon, baka to secure the premises, sama sa security.
To secure what, sir?
The fact remains is, walang order to arrest him from the very start. Yun ang sinasabi natin. Wala namang nag-order na arrestuin siya. Siya lang ang natatakot na arrestuin siya. Tatapak niya pero nandoon bigla siya.
So, Attorney Panelo, does that mean that nobody, not the CIDG, not the Army, not the PNP, not the AFP, no one can arrest Senator Sonny Trillanes, sir?
I think logic and common sense will tell us that if the government filed a motion for the issuance of an alias warrant of arrest, it means that we need a warrant of arrest to effect the arrest of Mr. Trillanes.
Opo.
I mean, it's as simple as that.
Okay.
So the fear of Mr. Trillanes has no basis. That is precisely why the Supreme Court denied there is no basis for his fears.
So, let me just get a categorical answer from you, Attorney Sal. Attorney, hindi ho ba aarestuhin si Senator Sonny Trillanes?
Ikaw naman, may pagkamakulit ka yung Pink. Sinabi na nga yun ng logic to. Bakit ka pa humingi ng warrant of arrest sa court kung mag-aaresto ka na pwede pala? Ibig sabihin, hindi po pwede mag-aresto kung walang warrant.
Yes, then you can also answer it, sir, that yes, hindi siya pwedeng arestuhin. Hindi ho ba? So,
Necessarily, yun ang magiging conclusion doon, Pink,
Okay.
naman.
Opo.
Ano ba yan?
But it's also good to really get a categorical answer and
Categorical,
clarify that,
ano
sir.
po bang categorical answer ang gusto mo?
Okay.
Sobrang categorical na nga.
So, ang sagot po ay hindi. So, let's now go to the decision of the Supreme Court, Attorney Sal. Ano ho ba ang
That is
inyong...
expected. That is expected precisely because there is no basis for that. Ang sinasabi niya, arrestuin siya. Wala namang warrant. Sabi nga ng korte, nag-file nga ng motion Ibig sabihin, hindi ka arrestuin.
Okay.
Number two, sinabi na ng Presidente, we will defer to the civilian courts. Ibig sabihin, yung due process mo, ino-obserbahan ng pamahalaan. Kaya nga tinapon ng Korte Suprema uli sa RTC kasi factual yung pinag-uusapan.
Yes.
Sabi niya, nag-apply siya. Sabi ng gobyerno, hindi. Sige, pag-usapan niya, magbigay kayo ng prema kung ano nga yan.
So,
Totoo ka nag-apply o hindi.
Attorney Panelo, pareho po, how I get it, pareho po yung inyong pag-intindi together with Attorney Robles, yung naging decision ng Supreme Court. So, factual basis, yung factual issue po, kailangan i-decide ng Makati RTC kung nag-apply si Senator Trillanes or not. Is that correct, sir?
Kasi nga, ang basis ng petition na tinanggal yung amnesty is hindi siya nag-comply ng mandatory requirements. So, ibig malaman ngayon ng hukuman kung totoo nga o hindi. Kaya kailangan pag-usapan niyo dyan. Kasi both sides are claiming different positions.
That's right. That's right. So, Attorney, what about the legal issue? According to Attorney Robles, parang the Supreme Court is still taking cognizance whether constitutional si Proclamation 572. That's how he explained it to us. Is that how you see it as well, sir? Because both camps are asked to comment within 10 days upon receipt.
Oh, pinapa-comment kasi nga yung petition ang ini-question ng petitioner, hindi valid yung pag-declare ng nalisin ng proclamation. So, illegal question yon. Is it valid or not? So, ang ruling ng Supreme Court ang mahalaga doon. Pagdating sa issue yon.
So that means they may decide on this still. Hanging pa rin siya, Attorney Panelo.
Gano'n na nga. Ever since sinasabi namin, hayaan natin ang Korte Suprema at ang bubuwa na mag-resolve ng mga legal issues na na-raise kaugnay doon sa amnesty.
So, Attorney, let me also go back to, again, my first question to you was the concern of the camp of Senator Trillanes na meron daw arresting team pa doon. So, what should be the order of government regarding this? After this decision, ho ba, pwede na silang paalisin o mananatili ho kaya sila doon?
Hindi na kailangan na magbigay ng order siya ng office. Kung yan ang naging decision ng Korte Suprema. So kung totoo man, dahil hindi natin alam kung totoo, hindi yung claim. Hindi natin alam kung yung nandun ng mga pulis, yun nga ang pinadala ron. Hindi natin alam kung yun part of the security. So hindi natin alam. Ang mahalaga, walang arrest sa kanya from the very start.
Okay. Yun po. Pero balikan ko lang po yun. So, we're not sure because that's also the camp of the senator saying that nandun po yung arresting team. But is government even curious, interested to find out kung meron ng arresting team doon at posibleng wag na sila, pauwiin na po sila o pabalikin na po sila sa kanilang trabaho dahil nga hindi naman po aarestuhin si Senator Trillanes?
Ang problema kasi sa kanila, lumilika sila ng multo na kinakatakutan nila. They created that.
Yeah.
It's all their imagination.
But sir, yun na nga po, aren't you interested to find out if there's an arresting team there? Do you care to find out if there's an arresting team still there in the Senate, sir?
Hindi na kailangan yun. Alam na nila. Alam mo yung mga, kung whoever is in charge there, alam niya ang gagawin niya.
Do you know who's in charge there, sir?
Hindi ko alam yun. Hindi ko nga alam kung totoo yung claim nila o hindi. Wala namang prueba na meron. It's only an allegation.
Okay. So, sir, anyway, 10 days now in the Supreme Court to answer the motion by Senator Antonio Trillanes regarding this. Again, we're talking about the legal issue that the Supreme Court may decide on, and of course, the factual issue that has been remanded, or the RTCs have to look into the factual basis of this. Attorney, while you're on the line, meron pong 3 p.m. press conference si Pangulo. What can we expect, sir? And are you going to be part of it?
Sabi nila. So
Yes.
I heard. I'll be a part of it.
Sir, it's 1:35. Do you know for sure if you're going to be part of it or not?
I'm on my way there.
To Malacanang, sir.
Yes.
Opo. Do you know the topic to be discussed?
I'm sure it involves the issues of the day, the issues that confront the nation.
Such as?
Alam naman natin ang problema ng bayan ngayon, di ba? Marami. Alam mo, sa tingin ko lang, si Presidente kasi, matagal lang hindi nakakausap ang media to expound his views, his positions on many things. Ang nangyayari kasi, ambush, interviews, kulang ang oras na magpaliwanag. Kung minsan, pagpupunta sa foreign trips, departure statement, konting-konti lang mga tanong, may iksi pa, tapos arrival, ganun din. So, decided na, sige, mag-assist nga tayo ng isang para masagot ko na yung mga gusto kong tanong ng media. Ganun yun. Ganun lang yun.
So, meron ho kayang big issue na lalabas mamaya?
Yes, lahat ng issues na pinag-uusapan ng dyaryo siguro yun ang lalabas.
But do you have any outline on what he's going to say, sir? Or mag-uusap pa lang kayo mamaya pagdating niyo po sa Malacanang?
Hindi. Hindi ko nga alam na ako kasama doon eh. So I'm going there. So kung anong sabihin lang, o ano bang gagawin ko, magtatanong ba ako?
Oo.
Mag-a-anchor ba ako? Makikinig ba ako? Well, whatever. Actually, it doesn't matter. Kung ano lang, wala namang problema yun eh. If they want me to ask questions, I have many questions to ask.
Yeah. But did you care to ask, sir? Did you ask anybody what the speech will be about or what role
Wala
you
naman
play?
yata speech eh.
The press con pala.
Pagkakaintindi ko, question and answer lang.
Okay, so I guess we're gonna have to wait. Attorney Sal, we'll just wait hanggang you have more information regarding the President's speech at 3 p.m. or press conference or press briefing mamaya pong 3:00. So Attorney Sal Panelo, Chief Presidential Legal Counsel, sir, maraming salamat po sa inyo.